In this episode, we speak with Tom Livne, CEO and founder of Verbit, a provider of live captioning and transcription services. The company uses voice AI, integrations, and professional transcribers to help businesses provide accessible, compliant meetings and events for a host of industries. A leader in the $30 billion transcription industry, Verbit has raised over $360 million to date after closing its Series E funding round. A former lawyer, Tom founded Verbit knowing how much money was being spent on transcription. He saw that many more industries could benefit from access to accurate transcripts. He has expertise in enterprise software, as well as tech-enabled and SaaS businesses, and is an active investor in promising tech companies. I'm your host, RJ Lumba. We hope you enjoy the show. If you like the episode, click to subscribe.
RJ Lumba is the executive chairman of Market Insight Media and the managing partner of GrowthCap. He is the host of Great Entrepreneurs, a podcast for driven entrepreneurs and business owners. Our podcast covers all topics related to the entrepreneurial journey, from ideation to execution to optimization and to reaping the rewards of a well-run business. In the minutes ahead, we'll share with you unique insights and tactics from some of today's most accomplished and inspiring entrepreneurs.
Tom, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. It's a delight to be with you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So where I'd like to start is learning about the transcription industry and why it's so attractive. You founded and are building Verbit and have been doing so in the last several years in rapid fashion. And you've raised over $600 million, which is notable. Tell us about why this industry is so attractive.
Sure. Would love to. So first and foremost, it's a $30 billion manual industry, right? Like really fragmented, divided into verticals, right? Like you have a healthcare vertical, you have legal vertical, you have government, you have insurance, you have education, you have media, right? Like call centers, many use cases. So voice is everywhere, right? So basically, the transcription is based on voice and voice to text and AI, and what's going on with Gen AI. So it's like the hottest place to be around the voice AI company like Verbit. So we came with the promise and delivered on this promise to be the world's largest AI-powered transcription platform that will disrupt the industry, right? Because the reason I started Verbit because I was frustrated customer, and I'm a lawyer. No one is perfect. So with all the legal transcript, and I saw how manual is the process and how old is it and not efficient, etc. And when technology meet, like as an entrepreneur, if you want to look to solve a big problem, so where it's manual and lack of efficiency, and technology can turn it around and basically digitize it and bring the innovation and AI to disrupt the industry instead of doing it fully manual with AI, with a small touch of the human, to have an accurate, perfect transcript. So we transformed the way that the industry, where we were the pioneer, and we are as I said, after 6.5 years since I started the business, raised over $600 million and a valuation of north than $2 billion with leading investors such as Third Point Ventures, Sapphire Ventures, Stripes Group from New York, and the Israeli angle of Viola Ventures, Vantage Venture, and Horizon Capital. So a lot of good investors that backing the company since the early days until where we are today, with almost 4,000 customers, over $80 million in ARR, and growing and consolidating the industry with unique tech-enabled roll-up strategy. And we're just getting started.
And is there one kind of example that, say, when you were out fundraising, where it was evident that, it was your solution that would be the dominant player in the space?
So basically, like the way we positioned ourselves is like the Uber for transcription, right? So like Uber came and took the taxi industry and digitized it, right? And make it with smart technology, etc. behind it. And so today is the world's largest taxi platform on earth, right? So this was our, kind of inspiration you can think about. And because not like it required a lot of combination of like, you can say someone either genius or crazy like me for like living whatever and start this company. right? And I saw the vision, I believed in it. I never imagined in 6.5 years we'll be where we are today. But yeah, it was an amazing journey. We were just getting started, and a lot of excitements ahead with like being the first one and in the industry to do it and to attract tier one investors to believe in our vision and in our dream. So it's also about helping people think about our conversation right now, right? A lot of verbal information exchange, and if you're a deaf or hard of hearing, without the Verbit transcript, you wouldn't be able to enjoy the verbal information. So basically, our vision is to allow all verbal information to be accessible, searchable, and insightful, right? So now with the Gen AI, you can create a lot of value from those words and those texts that we're creating with unique access to the workflow and the data. So this is our product roadmap ahead to come up with we just announced our new Gen V suite of Gen AI solution, and we kind of customize it per vertical. So it's going to be really interesting years ahead. We invested over $100 million in R&D in our voice AI technology over the years. So yeah, hell of a ride.
You mentioned that you would have never imagined that you'd be where you are today. Reflecting back, what do you think went well that maybe surprised you that you hadn't anticipated?
I think it's the timing. I think everything was a perfect timing match because speech recognition has existed for a long time, right? We haven't embedded it, but like we took this unique approach that instead of like doing everything manually, right? Like let's say we take this recording, okay, we send it there's a lot of like more than 5,000 traditional transcription agencies out there today that's still doing it manually. And basically, with our technology, this is what I'm saying, we're consolidating and disrupting the market to become the world AI-based transcription platform. And more exciting news ahead that I cannot share at the moment, but like we were really doubling down on our consolidation strategy. We did more than 6 M&As to acquire manual legacy transcription businesses and basically buying their customer base and implementing our technology and creating a lot of free cash flow and efficiency. So this is why we managed to attract, the tier one investors like we have, and it's an interesting period of time for us. So to your question around what is like unique is the timing that, in 2016, early 17, which we started the company in early 2017, you saw the cloud improvement and the deep learning, etc., and really started to see that voice AI technology is maturing and getting better. Because I remembered when I finished to practice law, I got my lawyer certification. I played with the voice AI technology back then, and it was shit, right? So if you will put this voice of this conversation as an input, and you can hear my terrible Israeli accent because there's a lot of parameters that affect the accuracy of the speech recognition. I can elaborate if you think it will be interesting for the audience, but the voice ad wasn't there. And a lot of researchers show that if the accuracy is less than 80%, it's better to start it from some scratch and, identify like the right timing, that this was the timing that AI was above 80%. And this is like more efficient to have an AI output and human just editing it rather than to write it from scratch and right timing, and then like a good environment of the macro that like technology funds, venture funds are investing. And today, luckily, I'm also LP in funds and investing back in the community, very involved and active here in the Israeli tech community. So yeah, so I have also to understand how they think about the business, etc. So to be able to fundraise over the years, and with COVID, right? So we were like then digitizing. In COVID, it's all about digital transformation, and the COVID gave us a boost. We see amazing increase, right? So think about it, that the company exists for 6.5 years. First year, like was me trying to recruit the team and raise some money. Then, okay, developing the product, and then start selling. So basically, we grew from 1 million to 80 million in ARR, annual recurring revenue, in basically 4 years, right? So it was an amazing growth journey. And then we are aiming now how we can be a billion ARR company in the next future, because we have a pipeline of 1,400 companies that are manual that we can buy with aggregate revenue of $1.5 billion. So it's really, this is why I say we're doubling down on the consolidation strategy and buying more of those businesses. And this is why we're always open to, speak with private equities that and can help us to execute on this dream, right? Because it's like classic tech-enabled PE roll-up. So yeah, we want to partner with the best in the world. So it could be interesting for our next journey ahead as a company
I'm
before
always
going public. So my dream eventually is to take this company public, but I think, it requires a step with like a strong sponsor like private equity.
I'm always interested in learning about the entrepreneurial mindset that at the beginning stages, when you realized this issue about transcription technology not being sufficient, were you at that moment immediately convinced this is how you would proceed and you would do so aggressively and ambitiously? Or did it take you some time? Did you deliberate and belabor the thought process? Should I start this company?
Yeah, so I'll tell you a lesson that I learned from our previous president, Shimon Peres. He has the Israeli Innovation for Peace here in Tel Aviv. And by the way, Verbit transcribed all the verbal information there and helped them to be accessible. It was an amazing project. So his motto, dream big, right? So I remember in the early days that my co-founders came with asking me, how are we going to compete with them, blah, blah, blah. I said, no, we're going to buy them one day. And they said like, wow, like what this guy, how much weed did he take, or like how much hangover from, I don't know. And yeah, and I reminded them like this conversation a few years after, and I said, you're like visionary that dream big, and then I dreamed about it. There's and believed in my abilities to execute, and still believing in my ability to take us to the next chapter, to the 1 billion of ARR, building something big that will last. Forever.
Did you always think that way, even as like a kid growing up, or even if when you were in university, did you always think you were going to do something big? Did you always do big things?
Yeah, so I'm an entrepreneur by nature. I knew that I could not have my own boss, and yeah, so I knew that I would be entrepreneur. I started to do business since I was like 13, promoting parties and etc. So I had like good time there. But then, I realized that I want to be after the army. I want to be in the technology space because I said, where is like the most growing kind of era, right? Or like vertical. So I took the technology because like the digital transformation, and knew that I want to be entrepreneur, try to equip myself with the best skill set. If it's being a lawyer and studying at the Rachman University, which I'm today, I'm on the board of director and donating their money, for the healthcare school that they're building next year. So I'm really involved in there and doing my philanthropy, I think, now to give back because out of the $600 million or 350 million is primary capital, which we still have hundreds of millions in the bank, and we're going to be profitable next year anyway. So yeah, and the other 250 million was secondary transaction to shareholders. So not all of it for myself, but a good chunk of it. So, but like with this comes the responsibility and to give example that you are sharing and donating back to the community. And I just had an interview because tomorrow is the new eve of Rosh Hashanah, the new year for the Jewish people, and like was interview about philanthropy, etc. So I hope like a new other fellow young entrepreneur that got lucky and can afford to do like all the charity, same as like the big names like Jeff Bezos, Mark Benioff, Bill Gates, obviously, etc. So
Knowing what you know about what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur, what do you think the characteristics are? Like, if an entrepreneur was to kind of approach you and ask you, hey, would you back me? Would you support me? Do you think I'll be successful? What are the things
with
that you would need to see in that person?
yeah, which they do all the time because I also have my early stage vehicle for investing in startups. We are now doing our first deal in music tech, really cool company. So yeah, they do approach me. So I can tell you very precise what I'm looking for. So first and foremost, I think is resiliency. They need like, and I've been in the special forces of the paratroopers, participate in the last foreign operation and still doing the reserve, right? So I learned something about resiliency at the army, and I think it's really shaped me as an entrepreneur. This is number one, resiliency. Number two is optimism. right? So you have like this up and downs, etc. And if you're not an optimistic person, you won't be able to be an entrepreneur. And the third one is like determination, right? Like when you have a goal, okay, I don't care, I will do it, whatever it takes, to be really determined and will be kind of fully committed, right? So here, as an entrepreneur, you need to give your heart and soul for your company and to be 100% there, committed and kind of obsessed about the company. This is the only way you can succeed, right? So if you do it, so you need to give all your heart and soul into it. So I would say determination and commitment. And then I think also courage. And I'll say why courage? Because as a CEO founder, you need to do some fantastic. And I think also all of it is, if you ask me, it's what makes good leader, right? So he needs to be optimistic, he needs to be determined, he needs to be brave and have some courage to do decisions that there are people that are not going to like it, and you need to stand behind and lead. So yeah, so those are my four pillars for the successful characteristic of entrepreneur that I'm looking to back, both as Tom as in our new fund, the Horizon Ambassadors.
What do you think is more fun, being an entrepreneur or an investor?
I can give you like very interesting perspective from, like starting being founder CEO in the early days, and now like, okay, you create a lot of wealth and a lot of responsibility. So you need to think more broadly, more big and dream big, as I said, and kind of, so like Verbit today is a bigger organization, right? Like more than 500 people that work for me, and a very, very senior and strong management team that my recommendation, hire people that are smarter than you, better than you, and kind of challenge them all the time to dream big, And yeah, so we have really good, strong management. So this allows me to do other stuff. So like have also the experience as an investor. But what I enjoyed the most is being kind of founding investors, to find them very early and then help them to build a dream. So yeah, as I said, we're doing the first deal in music tech. Again, for me, like doing this is becoming again as an entrepreneur. So I managed to split my time to be very efficient, that I'm working, 200%, no 100%. I'm like having many meetings a day. So then you can like do more stuff. So then it's a big organization. I don't need to be there all the time. So it allows me to do both, so I can enjoy from both worlds. But if I need to choose one, is the entrepreneur, because once you build it from the bottom up and then you see the creation, so every time you get the dopamine and the excitement from this, once you crack the business model, the first customer, the first term sheet, so it's interesting. Those exciting, and I happy that I can still enjoy both with my flexibility. So,
What's the most challenging part of scaling Verbit today, like at the stage it's at?
I think it's the Gen AI as also opportunity and also a threat for us, and so I want to explain why, and then to answer your question. So, think about, the demand to our solution at Verbit is driven by regulation, right? Why people need to ask it? Because they have to have the ADA, American Disability Act, that force organization like Stanford, Harvard, etc., to make their content accessible to students with hearing problem. Then you have the broadcaster and the media, right? Like the CNN, the Disney, NBC, etc. They need to make their closed captioning accessible again to people with hearing problems. So all those names are Verbit customers, just to give you. Also in the legal space, you need to have certified transcripts. You need someone to certify it so you can use it at the deposition process. Those are the verticals that we're focusing today. And it's really interesting to hear the dynamic on the digital transformation from like, the companies that we bought, they were like human based to more AI based, and how like you really drive more automation with technology, and how like now with all this Gen AI, how you're actually using it. And this is why I want to explain why it's risk versus opportunity, because the regulation is progressing in one pace, and the innovation technology is progressing in a different pace. And I saw a really interesting interview with Eric Schmidt talking about it. So because of the demand in our solution is driven by regulation, so we believe there are still a few more years until the regulator will change the regulation that AI-based only transcription is good enough to help those people with disability, because this is the basics, for why we're doing it. It's all about, as a company, and our values to do good and win together. It's part of our who we are. So we help people with disabilities around hard of hearing and deaf to make verbal information accessible for them as part of our vision, as I explained earlier. But then eventually it's all come down to pricing risk, because like revenue model for Verbit is number of audio minute we are transcribing multiplied by the price per minute. So the AI only will cost, let's say, 20 cents. And with human assisted is $1 because you need to pay to the human for the time correcting it. So there's a big 80% prices. And then, so I think we'll see the price compression over time. But then our metric is AI-driven solution and how it's growing, and with the trend of the market of more automation. And this is before talking about the opportunity that we can build vertical-based application based on Gen AI for each vertical. And I can give you example. We did hackathon internally, and we came up with 13 ideas for potential application in each vertical, and decided to commercialize 2 as top priority, one in the education space, one in the legal space, and then the education space. So I met with the right people in the universities I mentioned earlier, and what is the future of learning? All the Ivy League school, what is the future of learning? Let's dream together. And then because we have, as I said earlier, in the Gen AI world, your data is your differentiator, right? So once we have the unique access to the data and the workflow, we have the transcript of all those lectures that they have, and we can build on top of it summarization, creating all the book for this specific course, creating some topic extraction and linking it with other stuff if needed, and also creating engagement quiz, right? So to make sure you understand and see more engagement from the student in the learning management system. So this is what our the future and our product roadmap strategy. We're going to build a vertical specific application based on Gen AI with our transcript and the unique data set, since that the transcript is the prompt that you're putting for the Gen AI, and then you can do a lot of stuff around that. So this is the education space. In the legal space is more around finding contradiction in the witness, when in a deposition, when a tool for the lawyers. It's I call it legal intelligence or litigation intelligence that help them to identify when the witness contradicts himself and he's conflicting himself, and then to basically eliminate the paralegal work, right? What the burden of proof, what are the cases, relevant rules, relevant precedent, etc. So the Gen AI, when you put the prompt for it, can do it by itself. And this is also another very interesting application we're building on top of the data in the legal vertical. So give you some example of where we are taking the company in terms of the roadmap and the strategy. So really cool, exciting time ahead.
Excellent. One question before I head into the final portion of the interview. Can you tell us about how you interact with your investors? Do they assist on operational matters? Are they more, in some cases, capital allocators and then play a role on the board? How is your interaction with investors on a regular basis?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we have, as I mentioned, tier one shareholder base, most of them sophisticated investors, right? Third Point, we are the largest holding for Third Point Ventures in the private market because they're a big hedge fund in New York. And then Loeb and Rob Schwartz are a really good friend, and we're really enjoying partnering with them. So we have a quarterly board meeting, right, where we present all the financial, strategic discussion, etc. And we drove the Gen AI strategy for Verbit, and how we create from the lemonade, right? Because a lot of people can see it as a risk, and we because the quality of the AI is getting better, so we can always benchmark ourselves against the big tech, etc., and show that we're 20-30% better because of the vertical specific, etc. Because basically, what is speech recognition? Maybe it's interesting for the audience to understand. It's an algorithm that's showing you the best guess of what's been said based on statistical model, right? So think that we have this data network effect, right? And over 500 million hours of structured data we transcribe over the year and trained our technology with, because every customer we onboard, we have this statistical model that's been fed back to it, and then more automation, and you see better gross margin, better free cash flow, etc. And this is how we are, playing it and trying to drive more, improvement and efficiency and etc. So yeah, it's always ongoing kind of a challenge, not a challenge, like a hustle to build and to do it and to prove it again and again from each company that you're buying, etc. And this is why the AI-driven kind of all the time should increase, and this is how we think about our business.
Okay, last two questions. One is, can you tell us about a person who has had a profound influence on you?
Well, it's Ronen Neal. He led our Series A from Viola Ventures, with our big shareholders. So he worked with me closely in the board, really hands-on, and I enjoy working with him. And then he left the fund to start PSG operation in Israel. So then he had to leave the board, and he was like really kind of a mentor for me, learning a lot from him on the roll-up strategy and really how to build a big company, what are the important metrics to crack the business model, the revenue model. So it was like really hands-on experience. And there's another board member that's still on the board and we keep working together until this day, working at the fund also together. So Jacob, like I said, he was also important, kind of a mentor for me, because I'm a first-time CEO, right? And like to be so lucky for the first time to build such a big success. I do had like another experience of like 1 year with my previous one, but like I felt that I kind of stopped and started Verbit from the same place, like with this knowledge. So and to be, CEO of over a $2 billion market cap company, although, we're private, we're not traded. So, you can ask that this was at the COVID peak bubble valuation. So, and all the public market went down 60%. So Verbit is a mature company that, should be looking at, but anyway, not going to talk about valuation now. So, but yeah, so interesting experience.
Excellent. Last question. Can you tell us about a charity, cause, or other endeavor that you're passionate about?
Yeah, so why I told you about the interview I had for the New Year's Eve, it's called Keshet. It's like the first in Israel, like donority advisory fund. Like this is the vehicle, like why I was interested in charity in the first place, because my hobby is to listen for interviews of the Jeff Bezos of the world, or Bill Gates, or Mike Benny of the big philanthropist, or Warren Buffett, obviously, etc. So to listen to their interview around philanthropy, etc., it's really inspired me. And then I learned from them that like there's this vehicle of donority share advising fund. So through this vehicle, I made two interesting donation. So like my focus is around education and healthcare. So I donated to the hospital that I was born, and my dad, his life was saved there. So I made a good donation for this hospital and for the university. Reichman, as I mentioned, I'm part of the board of directors now. So they're going to start, as I said, the healthcare school. And like we need to have like the best labs for like all this digital transformation. And there's a lot of, in healthcare, digital health, there's a lot to be made. And we're kind of building our incubation in there. And I donated all the labs equipment, and the lab itself is going to be under the Livne Foundation. So it's going to be cool and exciting to see this launching next year.
Well, Tom, I want to thank you so much for taking the time. I know our audience will find this very insightful.
I hope so. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you.